Welcome to the Love Lab Podcast, a safe place to get real about sex. Whether you're a man, woman, single, or couple, this is the show for you.
We are your hosts, Kevin Anthony and Céline Remy, and we are here to guide you to go from good to amazing in the bedroom and beyond.
All right, welcome back to the Love Lab Podcast. This is episode 182, and it is called Everything You Need to Know About Yoni Massage. This is going to be a fun episode. I have a feeling Céline is going to be doing a lot of the talking since she is more of an expert on this subject. However, I think I do a pretty good job with it. But we're going to cover all kinds of stuff today. We're going to get into some scientific stuff as well as some pleasure stuff and explain to you why you would want to do this, what the benefits are, how to do it on yourself, how to do it on a partner, tools that you can use to help with the process. So there's a lot to cover.
Yes, and we called it Yoni massage so that we were not going to get banned, but it's called also vulva massage, pussy massage, vaginal massage. There are a lot of names to describe the same thing. So it's up to you to use whichever word you feel most comfortable with.
I want to use Yoni.
Yeah, well, that's the one we used. Well, for those of you who have never heard the term Yoni, Yoni comes from Sanskrit, and usually it is translated as kind of sacred space or sacred temple. And so a lot of women like the word Yoni because it sounds lovely and it doesn't have too much heaviness associated with it. And you know, for other words that are more charged, sometimes women don't like to use them. So it's up to you to choose whichever one you like, but we just wanted to define what we were talking about.
And YouTube and Facebook and everybody else doesn't like the other words either.
Yes. But before we get started, let's give a big shout out to our sponsors. So if you want to join the secret club of men who are great in bed, then check out Power and Mastery at powerandmastery.com. It is the most complete sexual mastery training for men, whether you want to have harder erections, last longer, or increase your sexual skills. As a matter of fact, in that course, we have an entire module that takes you through a step-by-step tutorial of a Yoni massage for healing. And so, that's not something we can put on YouTube. So go to powerandmastery.com and get the sexual mastery class if that's what you want to learn. So let's just quickly talk about some anatomy terms, because the outer part of the female genitalia is called the vulva. If you are watching the video, Kevin is holding one of our little vaginal puppets and he's showing the outer. So anything on the outside is called the vulva. Now, most people use that and call it the vagina, but really the vagina would refer to the inside. So when we are talking about the outside, it is the vulva. And we are going to spend some time talking about the vulva because you want to awaken her. You want to get the body prepared before there's any kind of penetration. We have done several shows. We have done a fantastic shows on the truth about the clitoris. And we've talked in the past about the anatomy and the importance of being engorged before any type of penetration. And this is when the vulva mapping and vulva massage comes in handy, because you do want to create circulation, engorgement before there's any stimulation inside.
Very important. Okay, so we understand what part of the anatomy we are going to be starting with. And we'll talk about some other parts later on, more towards the end of the episode. We'll talk about some internal stuff. But right now we're really dealing with the outside. And so there is a practice called vulva mapping where, well, basically what I want you to do is explain to the audience what exactly this practice is and how you might go about doing it.
Well, the vulva mapping is a practice to help you learn the topography of the outer part of your genitals. It is something you can do on your own, and it is something that your partner can do. I always recommend that you start on your own because you need to understand your body. You need to know how your body responds, how your body feels, so that you can guide somebody else to do it. And if you always depend on somebody else to get you to a place of pleasure, then you basically don't trust yourself or don't allow yourself to get there, and you put your power away into somebody else's hands, literally. And so you want to be able to know how to get there on your own, to do it too, to guide your partner. And you also want to enjoy it if your partner does it and does it well. So I want you to think of the vulva mapping kind of as a purposeful massage. We're not just like stroking without any intention or like just kind of trying to do things. The whole goal is to explore what your body wants, what kind of touch you like, the sensations, discover the hot spots, and expand your orgasmic potential. Yes. So vulva mapping can awaken new sensations, teach you to take charge of your pleasure, like I was mentioning earlier, and you might discover a new side of yourself in doing so and have a true understanding about what you want, and then ultimately build the confidence to go for it.
Yeah. So describe, because I want to add a part for the men, but first I want you to kind of describe what would it look like? Like, so we've explained kind of what it is and how it can awaken things, but like explain to a woman, like if she's sitting there listening to this, she's going, okay, but how do I actually do it? Right. So what does that look like a little bit? And then I want to kind of reframe. So you're going to talk about it from the point of view of like a woman doing it to herself. And then I want to reframe it a little bit for the men listening.
Absolutely. So the way that it looks like is I highly recommend that when you work on yourself to use a mirror so that you can see also what's happening and what it looks like. But you want to know the anatomy a little bit. And this, we're not going to go all in depth today about the name of every part and all of this because we don't have the time to do that. And it's a class in itself. But you want to look at your outer labias, inner labia. You want to look at the shaft of the clitoris, the hood. You want to look at the fourchette. You want to really start to use different type of massage to see when we think about pleasure and we think about touching ourselves, we often think about, well, this is the way that it works. I go to my clit and I do a windshield wiper motion or a circular motion that gets me there. And oftentimes we're very much focused on the destination rather than the journey in itself. And we are not using the full potential of what our body can do. And so when you start mapping it, you start to deconstruct how your body is built and every single part. And you start to work on each one by stimulate it. So you could use up and down strokes, circular strokes. You want to use some oil and lube because you don't want that process to be dry because there's no lubrication on the outside. So you want to make sure that you lubricate, that you use some oil to make it really nice. And you want to explore what kind of pressure do I like soft pressure, lighter pressure. What happens if I press right there at the fourchette, that little piece at the bottom part, versus the right side of my clitoris or left side of my clitoris? Or do I feel something in my labia, my inner labia? How is it on the outer labia? There are so many variations. You have to be curious and creative. And this is why I like to work with a mirror, because you get to see what's happening when you have a mirror, because your vagina, your vulva is going to start to shift a little bit. Like the coloring will be different, the puffiness as you're becoming more engorged. All of that will start to shift on the outside. And I want you to see that with your own eyes because it's marvelous.
It is marvelous indeed. So I wanted to reframe that a little bit because I knew you would do a good job of explaining what it would be like to go through the practice on your own. And I agree with you, every woman should start there. But it's also something that a man can do for a woman. And the reframe is really this, is when a woman is doing it to herself, she can feel like there's instant response. She presses here right? She knows exactly how hard she's pressing and she can feel it on her actual genitalia. So it's pretty obvious, what's going on, what she likes and what she doesn't like. But when you're doing it on her, it may not be as obvious because you're pressing and you have no idea what she's actually feeling. So, a couple of things I wanted to point out for the men if you're going to do this for your woman. Number one, we call it a massage, but it is not like a shoulder massage, right? You're not getting in there, digging in there with the thumb. You're not sticking your elbow in there, right? Oh, I'm going to get that. No, absolutely not. This is a gentle process. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you really have to pay attention to how she's reacting to it. So don't get so lost down there, like, this is so cool. Oh, and you're not paying attention at all, right? You need to be looking at what kind of facial expressions is she making? Is she like wincing, like, oh, that's uncomfortable? Is she starting to go into a pleasure response? Is she giggling because it's ticklish? And then pay attention to what parts elicit what type of reaction, because you might find that some parts she's like, oh, that feels so good. And then other parts she's like, ooh, And that can give you an idea as to what parts need a little bit more help than others, right? So you really have to be paying attention. This is a process. It's not like, let's say, I don't know, you're making out and you're fingering her and you're just doing whatever with your fingers, or you're going down on her and you're just kind of doing whatever. I mean, honestly, you should never really be just doing whatever. But the point is that you have to focus a little bit more here. There's a lot of intention behind this practice.
I like that you're bringing that up, Kevin, because having an intention before you even start is key. And we teach that a lot when we work one-on-one with people about what's the intention for the practice. Is it to get to know yourself better? Is it to release past trauma? Is it to build your confidence? Is it to find pleasure? Like whatever that is, set an intention before you start the practice, because it will take it from a mundane thing that you don't really pay attention to something that you elevate, that could be sacred, literally.
Yeah, and I would just add to that there can be a tremendous amount of healing that occurs during this process.
I'm going to talk about when I work with my clients, couples who come to me and we work in person and hands-on. I basically teach them how to do these kind of things on each other. And most of the time they seem a little disappointed when I explain to them that we're going to learn a Yoni massage and take the time to work on the outside. And usually we don't even get to the inside until the next session. And, most of the men, they go like, well, tell me the button to press, where to go. And I go like, you have to take the time to peel off the layers. Every woman I know has some kind of either trauma or shame or just thing that could be considered negative that is weighing her down around her genitalia. And unless you do the work to clear all of that out, every time that she shows up in the bedroom, if you have not cleared that out, it is in the way. It is in the way of her ability to feel pleasure, to become orgasmic. So unless it's kind of like you need to learn how to clear the area, how to sweep the floor really before it can get to that place of like, wow, like it's so shiny, I can slide there.
Yeah, I would say too that if you're a woman and you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I don't have any trauma there, there's nothing going on there, I would say you should probably take another look at that, because as Céline said, honestly, I don't think I've ever met a woman that didn't have some sort of trauma, some sort of shame. I mean, unfortunately, our society in general shames women's genitalia, unless they're trying to sell a product, but otherwise they pretty much do. And then just about every woman has had some sort of traumatic experience through sex from the time they were young and started exploring. And, the thing is, are they major traumas? Were they rape? Were they, assault of some sort? Not necessarily. but it could just simply be an immature boyfriend that said something like, oh, it looks funny.
It could be a visit to the gynecologist. I mean, they're not fun and they just shove things inside you before you're ready. It could be you own self not paying attention and shoving a tampon and not paying attention. Like all of these little things.
Yeah, and you know, we've talked about this many, many times on the show, but those types of traumas, those emotions get stored in the body. This is, you know, we talked about this when we interviewed Ori, right? We talked about using the dance to get the trauma stuff out. And it was a great conversation if you didn't listen to that episode, because we talked a little bit about the science behind that and how those emotions actually do get stored in the body. This is hardcore science. Like, you know, we figured out that there are receptors for these molecules of emotion that literally get stored throughout the body. So we know scientifically that this happens, and those traumas can absolutely be stored down there. And that's why this type of work can be so healing and so beneficial.
Yes. And again, to come back to the story about the couples, once I got them through that, basically pretty much every woman either cries or has a release of some type. The man gets to see a new face of his partner, of his wife. And he's like, I've never seen her like this. Or we touched a different place. And then the next time they make love, there's something different. And then they're hooked because they're seeing the value of it. But because in our society, we focus so much on the orgasm, on the clitoris, or on the G spot or A spot, or whatever spot you want to name, that we forget the art of awakening a woman's body, that just peeling off those layers again and awakening it will take you to much higher levels.
You know, that is a great segue, because so far we've really focused on the therapeutic value of it. But the next section is to discover how your body responds to arousal. So now we can talk a little bit more about the pleasure part and the awakening process.
Yeah, a lot of women struggle with orgasms. And that's usually why they come to me to work one-on-one with me, because they either don't have orgasms or don't have them with their partners, or something about that where they're like, I don't really know. I've never looked at my pussy. I mean, so many things.
Yeah, I just need to interject there for just 1 second. I am shocked. Still, after doing this work for years, I am still shocked at how many women have not looked at their own vaginas. Like, as a guy, we know every millimeter of our genitalia. We have spent hours looking at it, touching it, playing with it. I mean, y'all do it, guys. Don't say you didn't. You know that you did as a child and even as an adult. So I'm always shocked when these are women sometimes in their 40s or 50s who are like, I don't even know what my own vagina looks like. And you're like, what?
Or it's been years since I paid attention.
Yeah.
So because of that, they seek help. And oftentimes they find that they have only one definition of pleasure and orgasm. And they're like, if it doesn't fit like this, and I'm not experiencing pleasure or orgasm. And so when you take the time to do a vulva mapping and explore your body, you can start to realize that pleasure is always there. The way that I like to describe it is that it's like a radio wave, meaning that it's always there. All you need is to be able to turn up the knob in the right spot to hear it and to find it. And I find that with our pleasure, it's the same. So when you start to explore your body and take the time, you start to discover different things. Number one, your perineum area, the area between your anus and your genitals, should be toned and pliable. It shouldn't feel like really hard, or it shouldn't be like so pliable, so soft that you're like, wow, okay. You want it to be not holding tension, and you want to be able to release if there's any tension, because any tension that you're holding there is going to get in your own way. I want you to imagine when you have an orgasm, it's like this there's a rhythmic contraction of your muscles that happens. If the muscles are really tight and hypertonic, what happens is they're not going to be able to do this beautiful contract, relax that gives you a great wave and a great orgasm. If you're holding that tension, it's going to be short-lived, or it's not even going to be able to give you that movement of relaxation and tension. And that's why your orgasms could be not very fulfilling. What we're aiming for when we're working with a vaginal massage and with a vulva mapping specifically is what I like to call a relaxed arousal. And that is such a different concept. And that is something that I teach both men and women because I think most people don't do that. They just like tense up to rush and run towards their pleasure and their orgasm. And a relaxed arousal means that you are slowly building up without tensing up your body.
Yeah, this is actually a difficult one for a lot of men, especially if they have any fear whatsoever about the strength and quality of their erections. They just tense, squeeze, tense, hold everything in there. Not good.
Not good. So what you want to do is kind of ride the waves of pleasure rather than tensing, squeezing everything to try to make it happen and then go nowhere, because most of the time, the more you squeeze and contract and tighten, the less you get there. It's counterintuitive. Actually, learning to relax and open up is what will get you there. And especially for women, the act of surrendering, there is such a correlation between your ability to let go and surrender and your ability to feel pleasure. And that means in every way, in your head, in your body, in so many different areas. And I still struggle with that. Even though I teach this, even though I know about it, there are times where I'm stuck in my head. There are times when I'm like, Kevin, help me. Like, it's like, I like not able to let go today, or it's like maybe I could use my partner's help. Maybe sometimes we just don't get there. But knowing that that's a huge piece. And so that vulva mapping allows you to build slowly the arousal without the tension and to start to let go a little bit more and then surf those waves. So rather than going straight for that destination, you can start to pay attention to how it feels in your body and to how empowered or refreshed you feel. Like I have a different feeling and how pleasure is showing up today. Rather than boxing pleasure and the sensations that it should be into one box only one way, you can be more open to how does pleasure want to show up for me today.
Yeah. And as a woman, it could show up very differently every time. There's no telling how it's going to show up in any given moment, right? So yeah. All right. Before we go any further, we want to do a quick break for our sponsor, which I'm actually going to read today because you're doing lots of talking. So I want to give you a little break.
All right.
But I'm going to start with this one, and then we'll do the other one at the end because we're going to talk about that more towards the end. All right. So if you are a committed couple who is stuck in a rut and just going through the daily motions instead of connecting the way you used to, are you tired of stale mechanical sex that lacks spontaneity and fun, and you don't want to live a life of average? Then we'd like to invite you to join our highly sexed Power Couple Platinum program. Give us 90 days and we will help bring the passion back between the sheets so that you can be synced up sexually and thrive with more purpose and passion in life. It is still, when this airs, it will still be within your New Year resolution window. Okay. So seriously, if your relationship isn't the way you want it to be, if you're not having the sex you want to have, if you're not having the connection that you want to have, it's time to fix that. Nobody needs to be stuck in a relationship that's not working. There's no reason for it. And most of them can be fixed. That really is our experience, having worked with a lot of couples. Most relationships can be fixed. If you're tired of being in a relationship that's not working for you, now is the time to reach out to us while you're motivated and change things. Okay.
Well, tell them where to go. CelineRemy.com/passion to learn more about it.
Yes, link in the description as well, as always. Sorry, see, I don't normally read the ads.
Let's talk about working with discomfort and sensitivity, because it's a big elephant in the room. When we talk about vaginal massage and vulva massage and Yoni massage and all of these good, yummy things, the reality of it is that a lot of women, number one, don't feel anything, or have a lot of tension and discomfort and would rather not go there because of that. And either one of them is very common, because there's two ways really that you can deal with a traumatic experience, or just, like a trauma in itself. Number one, you can numb out so that you disconnect. So then that way you don't feel anymore, or it becomes so sensitive that you don't get to be touched again, so that you don't have to go there. So it's the two ways that usually it will react. And unfortunately, when either one of these things happen, people stop touching because they're like, well, I don't feel anything, or I feel too much, so I don't want to go there. And that reinforces the discomfort, the sensitivity, or the trauma. And so one of the keys, rather than avoiding the stimulation, is to go slow with that stimulation. If you start and it feels good, and then you hit a place where it just does not feel good, rather than like stopping right away, is to slow down, pause, gently hold the place, and purposefully send your attention, energy into this area, and see if using your breath and your intention, you can allow it to open up, to relax, to soften. Maybe you can start to feel if there's something there. And don't get attached to any of the stories like, why is it this way? Why am I broken? Why isn't it working? It doesn't matter the why. Just be present. I find that the more you're able to just be with what is without trying to change it, that's when it happens. That's when the change happens. The more you resist it, that resistance is what prevents the changes. And so just breathe with that, stay with it. Of course, adjust the pressure, because if you feel discomfort, you want to back off, back down, and just kind of like stay with it, and then come back and revisit a little bit later. Does it feel better? Is it different? And I think it's a very important one to also bring into your relationship with a partner. When you do it for yourself, it's easy because you feel like it's like touch and result right away, and you know what's going on. But if you are touching your partner and she's reacting in a way that you're like, okay, it's not feeling good, don't take it personally. Number one, it's not about you. And number two, like, stay with it. Don't try to like just, we won't go there anymore. Stay with it. Hold space for her. It is your role as the masculine to hold that space, that container, for her to transform, to open up and surrender.
And don't try to fix it. That's the thing that guys always do. As soon as something's wrong, we're like, we can fix that. This is not a time to try to fix it. You don't need to try to solve what's happening or why. You really just need to hold space.
So now that you have better understanding around that, let's just quickly talk about why you would want to do this vulva massage. Why would you explore some of that? Well, number one, it's a great way to reduce your stress. It's a great way to connect with your partner. You can learn to release if there's pelvic pain and move, past that, especially for women who have discomfort during penetration. You can start to learn to relax that tension and open up slowly and surely, because most of them will just go too fast. And if we give the body enough time without any agenda or pressure to happen in a certain way, it will change.
Yeah, there's actually a much higher number than you would realize of women who experience pain or discomfort with sex. And this could be a great way to relieve that. And there's a number of conditions that can potentially cause that pelvic pain. Everything from endometriosis to sexual trauma, interstitial cystitis, anxiety, irritable bowel syndrome, musculoskeletal imbalances, vulvodynia, right? So there's like all these things that can potentially cause pain and discomfort down there. So one of the major benefits to this work is if you are one of those women who experiences that, this could potentially relieve it.
I always recommend that you learn from somebody who knows what they're doing first, just so that you can do a better job. And so, whether you work with us or get to our online course or work with somebody else, we're not the only people teaching that, but it's a good idea to be shown the technique first and really see it and understand it first, and then you can continue on your own.
All right. So another benefit is that some women report stronger or more frequent orgasms following regular yoni massage.
Well, do we need to go more in detail with that, or enough said, right?
Enough said. That's all the reason you need.
Well, and the Yoni massage allows you to explore your body in a slow, methodical, and sensual way without the pressure to perform or without having to do something for a partner. I mean, it's really all about you. And when I teach this practice to my couples, it really is. It's not about we end when she comes. It's we end when she feels complete. Maybe we say we're going to give it 45 minutes to just have you relax and open up and won't go anywhere else. It's just about was great, and it doesn't end in penetration. Just because you gave her a nice massage and she's open, wet, and ready, it doesn't mean you have to slide in. Actually, you shouldn't. The practice in itself should be a practice of its own. You should close the container. Remember how we talked that you had to have an intention first, then close that container, do something else for like 5, 10, 15 minutes, and then see if you want to come back to doing something different afterwards. But don't just try to cram everything in, literally.
Okay, so there's one last aspect to this that we want to talk about. And so far, we've talked about whether you're doing it on yourself or you're doing it on a partner. It's basically using your hands. But there are other tools that you could potentially use to explore this. And then you were actually hired by a company to help create a program for them, specifically utilizing their tool in order to do this. So I'm wondering if you might describe to our audience how you might use a tool and how that might benefit them in this practice.
Yeah, a couple of years back, a company reached out to me, and they called Zoomio, and they create these vibrators. If you're watching the video now, I have one here. I've got one of the purple one, and one of the big thing about those is that it's a rotation, not a vibration. Meaning, there's a really fine little tip, and that you can use to explore very pinpointed. Right. And I know it's running. You can hear that. Yes, it is a vibrator and it's running. There's different speeds. But what's awesome is when you explore with that tool, and let's say you put more pressure, it stops to, it becomes like deeper. So you can really explore and use it in near of a finger to do all of that and see, like, do I like deeper pressure? Do I like faster? Do I like slower? And that can give you a good idea and could give your hands a little bit of a break too. And so Zoomio is a great toy. I usually don't like vibrators very much. This is really all for external stimulation, and you can use it anywhere on the body. You can use it around your nipples. I do that sometimes. You could use it the back of your neck, behind your ears. I mean, we have all these different points, so you can explore that. And we have a little link for you. It's our affiliate link. So if you go through this, we get a small commission for it. If you go to CelineRemy.com/go/Zoomio, it's ZUMIO, you'll get to our link, but the link will be in the description below. And I know that if you purchase any of their toys right now, you will still have access for free to the guide, the Vulva Mapping guide that I created for them in conjunction with them. So it's really cool because it's got the drawings and more information about what we just talked about. But that's a good tool to use. And I'm sure there are other toys out there, but I like that one because of that pinpoint, because of that rotation, rather than the vibration. And so you can do more and explore more.
If you happen to have T-Rex arms, really short arms, it gives you a little bit more reach to get down to those bottom places.
So we've talked a lot about the outer parts, and really, I think that it is really that important. This is why we gave it a whole show before you go inside, because you have to understand that this allows the body and the vagina to become more engorged, to create that process of tenting, of expansion that happens. It will make the women have better orgasms. I mean, so many things that happen. So you should never penetrate a woman unless she is totally engorged. Otherwise, it'd be the equivalent of having penetration with a softie. And so it's like, you want to make sure that she's got a hard on, right? And you don't want to just give the clitoris the only spot and all the attention. You want to give all of the other parts attention. But I quickly want to talk about being inside and the concept of clocking, the Yoni clocking. And this is a practice, again, that you can find if you go to powerandmastery.com and get into our sexual mastery program. And it's in detailed step-by-step tutorial. You'll see it in live on the models. So it's absolutely worth it. But what you want to think about is that the inside of the vagina is divided into quadrants and sections. And rather than just always aiming up towards the pubic bone, that's a 12 o'clock point, that's kind of the G-spot area, you want to give the entire vagina some attention. So if we were to divide it into 4 quadrants, and you want to give that upper right, that lower right, a lower left, and upper left area some good attention, and you want to be like massaging it gently. You want to explore, is there tension in that area or not? And that also will help to awaken new areas. I think what happens is that most people always stimulate one area that works for them. And then, whether they're male, female, it doesn't matter. They're like, this is how I do it. This is what works for me. And the thing is, we've got multiple nerves that give us pleasure, that nerves like that go from our genitalia to our brain and different areas of the body. And if we only use the same pleasure pathways, we kind of lose our ability to do the other ones. So re-exploring new pleasure pathways and giving other pathways a chance to awaken, because here's the thing, sometimes it won't be as pleasurable as what you know, because it's just dormant. It will take a little time. But the concept with the Yoni clocking is that you're not going to go there to give her an explosive orgasm. You're going to go there to release any tension that is in the way of her being able to experience orgasms at another time.
That is a very powerful practice. I mean, the vulva mapping on the outside is already powerful. And then when you actually get to the internal clocking, it can be super powerful.
And combining the two is like, wow, okay, now that's a whole new thing.
Yeah, that's, I don't even know if we can possibly overstate just how powerful these particular practices can be. So if you are interested, if you're a guy and you want to learn this, for sure, check out Power and Mastery. If you're a woman and you want to learn this, reach out to Céline. These practices can actually transform your life.
Yeah. But get started. If you sign up for the vault, we've got free stuff to get you started. Use today's show. Gave you lots of pointers and tips, and start exploring, start looking and shift your focus from having to go somewhere to just being, feeling, exploring, being in the moment. And that will transform your sex life. That will transform how you show up for yourself and how you show up in the bedroom.
All right. Well, we hope you got a lot of value out of that. I know if you've never done this and you try it, you are going to be completely blown away. So please, please do. And that's all the time we have in this episode. So we will see you next week. We hope you liked this episode of the Love Lab podcast. If you enjoy this show, subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends.
And for more free, exclusive content, join us in the Passion Vault at CelineRemy.com/vault. That's CelineRemy.com/vault.
Thanks for listening.
And remember, you're amazing.